Welcome back to Views with Hughes, agenda-free news. This is Jerome Hughes. Now, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, the update to the complete disaster that is Rings of Power Season 2 on Amazon Prime Video is not a surprise to us all. Now, you see, Rings of Power Season 2, touted as the most expensive television show ever made, is giving a glaring example of what happens when you pour billions into a project without respecting the source material or the audience. From the very beginning, Amazon and the mainstream media have tried to gaslight us into believing that Rings of Power Season 2 was a monumental success, or Rings of Power in general. But the numbers don't even lie, people. See, Rings of Power Season 2 is a colossal failure of epic proportions, and we're into the 5th episode, and it's about time we talk about why. Now, when Rings of Power Season 2 first premiered 2 years ago, not Season 2, Season 1, Amazon made sure everyone knew it was the most expensive television show ever created. Now, we're talking about upwards of $1 billion just for the first 2 seasons, and they paraded Rings of Power Season 2 around as if, spending that much money would automatically translate into quality and success. But let's be real. It doesn't even matter how much you spend even if Rings of Power Season 2 is fundamentally flawed, or since it is flawed. From day one, there was a massive backlash from Season 1 from fans who could see right through the glossy visuals and epic marketing stunts. And Amazon, however, went into full-blown damage control mode, trying to convince us that Rings of Power Season 2 is actually a massive hit. You see, they've pushed this narrative so hard, you'd think they were trying to win an Oscar for Best Fantasy. But once the real ratings came out, their fantasy came crashing down, okay? Now, here we are like 2 years later with Rings of Power Season 2, and it's deja vu all over again. Rings of Power Season 2 and stuff with the official Twitter account recently posted that Rings of Power Season 2 has amassed over 40 million global viewers, thanking fans for making it the #1 show on Prime Video worldwide. That sounds impressive, right? But this is just basically a classic corporate spin. If you dig deeper, this number is nothing more than a smokescreen. And the company pulled the same stunt during the first season, claiming that 25 million global views within 24 hours, but they never clarified what those numbers actually meant. Now, did those viewers watch the entire episode, or did they just click play for a few seconds before realizing they were bored out of their minds? Now, this company also conveniently left out that part, and they're doing the same thing now with Rings of Power Season 2, pushing a vague number to go ahead and distract from the real problems with Rings of Power Season 2 itself. Now, despite the company, Jeff Bezos' company's efforts to paint Rings of Power Season 2 as a hit, the real numbers tell a different story. You see, recent reports show a sharp decline in viewership compared to the first season, as I shared before. According to Amazon's own data, Rings of Power Season 2 reached about 40 million viewers in the first 10 days. But let's not get fooled here. Amazon has not defined how it quantifies this viewership. Now, is it the number of people who watched it, or any portion of the available episodes? Did they count those who fell asleep halfway through? We don't know, because they won't even tell us. Now, this ambiguity only serves to highlight how desperate they are to save face with Rings of Power Season 2. If Rings of Power Season 2 was truly successful, you wouldn't have to resort to these half-baked statistics, okay? And we all know Rings of Power Season 2 so far is a failure. But to put things into perspective, let's compare Rings of Power Season 2 to another fantasy series, House of the Dragon, HBO's hit show. It costs around $200 million per season, a hefty sum, no doubt, but still far less than the ungodly budget of Rings of Power Season 2. Now, we're talking about estimates of around $450 million per season for Rings of Power Season 2, and that doesn't even include the $250 million they spent just to go ahead and secure the rights to Tolkien's work. Now, we're looking at roughly $700 million for Season 1 and an estimated $500 million for Season 2. And with that kind of budget, Rings of Power Season 2 needed to be nothing less than a global phenomenon to go ahead and even break even. Now, instead, Rings of Power Season 2 is a laughingstock, and no amount of creative accounting can change that. Now, Amazon's push to go ahead and declare Rings of Power Season 2 as the #1 show worldwide on Prime Video is an act of desperation when you consider what, Rings of Power season 2 is actually up against. Netflix currently has, multiple titles that are outperforming Rings of Power season 2, and these aren't even big name, heavily promoted shows, and they're your run of the mill Netflix originals that quite frankly don't need to have $billion budget to attract viewers. Now, this stark contrast highlights just how poorly Rings of Power season 2 is doing, despite all the hype, all the promotion, and all the resources that Amazon's throwing at it. Okay, so let's talk about the viewership loss for Rings of Power season 2 right quick. Now, according to several different reports, season 1 had $1.8 million U.S. households tuning in within the first 4 days. And then you also have Rings of Power season 2. It's down just about 900,000 over the first 5 days. A staggering 50% of viewership drop. That's not even red flag. And I don't know what is. And if you break it down further, looking at a total minute stream, it gets even worse. You see, Rings of Power season 2's first 3 episodes garnered significantly fewer minutes watched compared to the first 2 episodes that debuted in season 1. And this is a complete embarrassment and raises the question, could Rings of Power season 2 actually get canceled? Now, in any other situation with any other company, this kind of disastrous performance would have executives pulling the plug faster than you can say Middle Earth. But Amazon is different. You see, Amazon, like Apple, makes most of its money from other ventures. Streaming is just a side hustle for them, a bonus for their already massive income. And for Amazon, Prime Video is less about turning a profit and more about keeping people subscribed to Prime. So even if Rings of Power season 2 is hemorrhaging viewers and losing the culture battle, Amazon might be willing to take a hit just to keep their long-term plan going. But let's be honest here. It's still a massive mistake and failure. You see, this company committed to a 5-season plan, but they're throwing good money after bad at this point. You see, Rings of Power season 2 alone cost an estimated $500 million, $500 million. And to put that in perspective, the highly successful series, The Boys, costs around $80 to $100 million per season. Now, I'm going to go ahead and clarify a statement that I just made. I'm not sure if I can call, the latest season of The Boys successful, but that's here and there. And it's pulling in similar viewership numbers and stuff to Rings of Power season 2. Now, Amazon is spending 5 times as much to achieve the same results, and it's unsustainable right at this point. And the math doesn't even lie. You see, this company's entire strategy seems to be gaslighting the fans into believing that Rings of Power season 2 is doing better than it is. But the truth is, fans see right through it. And hardcore Tolkien fans are not stupid. They know when something like Rings of Power season 2 doesn't respect the lore of the spirit of the original work. And this company's constant push of this inflated numbers for Rings of Power season 2 is not convincing anyone. And if anything, it's just making people angrier. Now, when you spend this much money on Rings of Power season 2 and still lose half your audience, something is seriously wrong. And no amount of spend can change that. And let's not forget, that Netflix shows, which are often made with the fraction of Rings of Power season 2's budget, are routinely outperforming it. And titles that don't have the same cultural legacy, the same brand recognition, or the same financial backing are beating Amazon's billion-dollar baby. And while this company tweets out that Rings of Power season 2 is #1 on Prime Video, other platforms are raking in viewers with half the fanfare and 10 times the audience satisfaction. So where does this leave Rings of Power season 2? Well, Amazon can continue to prop it up as long as they want, but eventually reality catches up with everyone. You can't keep spending $500 million per season on Rings of Power, especially with Rings of Power season 2 that's losing half its audience without consequences. And for all the talk of a 5-season plan, it's clear that the numbers don't improve. And quickly, Amazon is going to have to make some tough decisions. Now, they can't keep throwing money into a black hole like Rings of Power season 2 and expect a different result. Otherwise, you'll be the definition of insanity. Now, for the fans, it's a bitter pill to swallow. Many hope for Rings of Power season 2 would be their next big thing, a worthy continuation of Tolkien's legacy, but what we've gotten instead was a shallow, expensive spectacle that failed to capture the heart of and soul of Middle Earth. Now, the massive decline in viewership, on the other hand, isn't just about, people losing interest. It's about fans feeling betrayed by a product that didn't even live up to this promise. No amount of marketing can fix Rings of Power Season 2, okay? But the fact of the matter is, Rings of Power Season 2 is just a textbook example of what happens when you ignore the fans, overspend on the spectacle, and underdeliver on substance. Now, Amazon wanted to create the next Game of Thrones, but forgot the crucial element: storytelling that respects the audience. They can keep posting their inflated view counts and boast about, being #1 on Prime Video, but the numbers don't lie. You see, Rings of Power Season 2 is a complete failure, plain and simple. Now, if this company owned by Jeff Bezos doesn't make some serious changes and fast, they're going to find themselves stuck with the most expensive albatross in television history. It's time for them to go ahead and stop gaslighting, start listening to the fans, and remember that money can't buy success. You see, the audience sees right through the facade, and no amount of this flashy marketing will change that. Rings of Power Season 2 had all the potential in the world, but it squandered it on empty visuals and hollow storytelling. It's a lesson that Amazon and the rest of Hollywood would do well to learn from, okay? So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you might have this particular topic. If you enjoyed what I shared in this video, go ahead, smash the like button, share far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already and you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.